Okay, today's the first day of spring, so we're going to make a little wire work bird's nest with little pearl eggs in it. This is super easy, and we're going to make it out of copper. And so here's the materials that we need. We need our pliers. So I have chain nose, flat nose, round nose. We have a bail making plier. This is a 3-step one, so these are the different sizes that we're going to make the bail. The bail is the top of it that your necklace material strings through. Flush cutters and some wire straighteners. These are always a good idea to have around. We may not need them, but they're always good to have around. They will straighten out wire and salvage it, and it's also good to hold things too that you don't want to mar up your work, so those are always good to have. We are going to work with copper, so this is bare copper, and this is what it looked like before. This is the 24 gauge. That's what we're going to use to put our eggs in our nest. But I went ahead and I pre-antiqued my wire. And so what that means is we used liver of sulfur gel, a drop of this in an old Tupperware dish of hot tap water, and it turns your copper wire into this. So I like to pre-antique it as I'm working. When you're working and you see all the little nooks and crannies, when you antique this after it's all done, it's hard to get into those nooks and crannies and clean it up afterwards. So I like to pre-antique my wire, and then as I'm working it, I go in and clean it up and do it as I go. That way I can get in there and not have it all be black and whatnot. So anyway, we've got 22 gauge wire here. I've just got 2 pieces. No big deal. I just thought I would run out of 1 piece. So there's the 22 gauge, and then we're going to wire in our eggs with 24 gauge wire. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a considerable amount of wire. We're going to use this one here. And I'm going to guess that this is probably, let's see here, I got it all tangled up. Oh, this is probably about 5 feet of wire. That might be overkill, but I usually just work right off my spool when I'm going to do this. I always have a good amount of pre-antiqued wire. So we have a mandrel. Now this one's to make this size, this little bird's nest, but I've made some larger ones, so anything can be a mandrel. But I like to buy dowels and then just cut them. And you can use a jar, you can use a pill bottle, anything to be your mandrel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by wrapping this around, and I'm going to leave a good maybe 6 or 7 inches of wire, and I'm going to just start wrapping this. And as I'm wrapping, I'm kind of overlapping as I wrap around. Okay, and I don't want to go any wider than what my nest is going to be, so I'm just overlapping and winding in and out, and occasionally I'll come around and just do it straight on and then go in and start layering it and zigzagging it. And this is looking like a good amount of wire here. I'm almost down to the end here. Okay, so that's what we've got. I've got 2 ends here, and now I'm going to slide this off. And so we have this little ring of our wrapped wire. Now I'm going to take one of my ends here, and I'm just going to work it through. And I don't want to tighten it too much because I don't want to pinch my nest. I just want to bind it together. So a couple of wraps there. Okay, so there's one. Now this other wire here that I left out, I'm going to make my bail out of that. So I'm going to wrap it around once. Now I'm going to take my bail making pliers right here, and I'm going to pinch. So you get your choice of the size bail you want, but I actually like to go to the bigger one, and I'll show you why afterwards. So I've got that pinched. My wire is in the front here. I'm going to take this, and now I'm going to wrap this around my bail making pliers, and I'm going to come through here I'm going to open up my pliers and I'm going to wrap this around several times. We want them right next to each other. Okay, so I'm going to do it 4 times. All right, I'm going to go through here. All right, so now this is what we've got right here. So what I like to do is see how that is. I like to pinch this in right there. So I'm gonna come in here with my flat nose, and I'm just gonna give that a little squeeze in. Oops, I came off of my, I didn't have that on there right. Hang on a sec here. There we go. Okay. So you're going to give that just a little pinch up against your nest there. So now we have a nice little like keyhole shaping there. I'm going to put it back on my mandrel just so I don't distort my bail. And now I'm going to take my wire here and I'm going to wrap it around my bail. And I'll be wrapping some more wire around this, so this is just to get this started. So we've got something like that going on. And all my little ends I'm going to tuck in later to the nest and stuff, so I'm just going to let that go. Okay, so now we've got this, and now we're going to wrap it. I'm just going to take this through, and now we're going to start weaving our bottom. So you figure out which is the front and which is the back. So this is going to be my back side here. So when I weave my wires in, I'm going to pull out a couple of wires here in the back like this. See that? And now I'm just going to start weaving my wire back and forth and stitching it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, and now this one I'm just going to take and I'm going to do a wrap. Another binding wrap. And that'll get tucked in on the inside there. Wrap some more wire here. And just work with a comfortable piece of wire. So what I'll do is I'll start this, and I'll start it in the middle of the wire. So I'm just going to go ahead and start this. Pull that out. Shove my wire in, and I'll shove it in halfway. And then I'll leave that half alone, and I'll just work with this half. We're just going to keep weaving back and forth. To make our bottom. Okay, and so what I'll do is I'll finish this up and then we'll come back and I'll show you my bottom. Okay, so see, I built up the back of the bottom of my nest. This is the tail end of that first half of wire, and this is that second half. So I'm just going to work this in and out, and I'm just going to get rid of my wires where my eggs are going to be. You want to make sure you don't have any wires poking out the back that can snag your clothes or pick at your skin or whatever. So I'm just going to continue to work this little piece in, and then I'm just going to wrap it around a couple of times. Put that in. Okay, so there it is. There's my little end. I'm going to cut it. And I like to take my chain nose and I like to roll it and tuck in that little end there. There, it's inside. The eggs are going to cover it and nothing's poking here. I still have this little guy here that I'm going to get rid of. So I'm going to jam him in there. You don't have to be really super neat. This is more of a primitive, sort of organic looking little thing, so you don't have to be super super, super neat and perfect with it. All right, so I'm just gonna roll that in there and get rid of that. Okay, so I still have this wire, so I can put a little more into my nest, and then I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna use some of this to wrap around my bale up here just to give it some more stability. So I'll just weave this in. I'm looking for some bare spots here that I can cover up. I'm working my way up to my bale. Okay, so I'm going to come in from behind here. And now I'm just going to wrap this pretty tight. That feels nice and snug now. So see how that looks? Okay, now I'll just work this wire back into the back. Into the bottom, I should say. Plier here. Look how cute that's starting to look. All right. And I'm going to take and I'm going to wrap this other side here, so we have even wraps. You don't have to do 4. You could do 3. I could have spaced these 2 out, but I didn't do that. So we're going to come over here and what we're going to do is we're going to go tweak these wires too to make it more look like twigs. Okay, so I'm just going to get this wire in there and get rid of it. You can make the bottom of your nest more denser. I'm just not going to, just for time's sakes. Here, and alright, so let me just go ahead and get rid of this wire a couple times. Bring it up through into the inside and snip it off. And then I'm going to take my chain nose and I'm just going to roll that little end in and make sure it's not poking out the back here. Okay, so there's our little nest started. Yeah, we got some wonky wires here, but that's okay. We're going to fix those. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mandrel. This one's a little too big now. It won't fit in there. So I'm just going to take another little stick here and I'm going to push down inside just to sort of smush my wires down and give it some shaping. Okay. Also makes it nice and compact in the back. Alright, so now we're going to take our flat nose plier. We don't really want to use our chain nose so much because the chain nose kinks the wire way too much. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to take my flat nose and now I'm just going to start bending. I'm just going to start tweaking some of these wires on the outside here. And it just starts looking more like little sticks. Okay, and I'll even just like do that to some of the straighter wires inside the nest. A little shaping here. Okay, so that's starting to look a little more twiggy. Okay, that looks right there. Now, some of these little wires here, like this little one here, I will grab my chain nose because it is a little pointier and it is easier to get into some of these little nooks and crannies, but it does kink the wire up. You don't want to give it too much of a turn because it will snap your wire. Okay. Alright, so there you go. So just do it however you like it. Come in here and just... Alright, so there we go. There's our little nest. I'm going to clean this up with some super fine steel wool, 4 zeros. Looks like this. Comes in a pillow. Just pull off a piece, roll it into a ball, and then you're going to, and I always like to do this over a paper towel or something because the little pieces of steel break off. It's messy. And you're just going to go in, and it's going to clean the patina off of all of the raised areas, but leave it darker on the inside. Okay, so you can get as fussy as you want to get over this. Now, I take this back, and with an old toothbrush or something underwater, I would go in and brush out all of these little, look at all that, because I found out the hard way, they'll stay in there and then they rust if it gets wet. I put it through the tumbler and there was rust everywhere, and it's just yucky. But I'm going to go ahead and put the eggs in, so we'll get rid of this. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and wire in our eggs. I have 24 gauge wire because I'm using these little itty bitty freshwater pearls, and pearls always have teeny tiny holes. So I'm just going to go ahead and come up through the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch it through a couple, 1 or 2 times to anchor it. You don't want the wire to kink, so sometimes you want to put your finger, have the wire come down over your finger before you let it go so it doesn't kink up. And then we're going to just stitch this up through. So see how I put my finger there so that it keeps it from kinking. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch in my first egg. You don't have to use white, you don't have to use pearls, you can use any color you want. Alright, so now I'm just going to... Now, I don't want to see the wire coming out of my holes, so what I do is I don't put my pearl right up against the nest. I take it and I bend it like so that wire is going down right up against my pearl. Now I'm going to stitch this back under and underneath the pearl, like back way underneath it, and that will make that wire almost invisible. Let's see here, I can find a hole. All right, there we go. Okay, see, you can't even see the wire coming out of it. All right, so now I'm just going to come up and stitch in another one. You always want to make sure your wires stay smooth. Don't use kinked up wire. There we go. And that. You're like so. Stitch going down underneath your egg. There's the other one, and I'll come up over here. And you always want to do things with jewelry. Their odd numbers are usually the best. 3s, 5s, 7s. 4 just doesn't look right. Anyway, just pull that through. Go. And then over, back and over, and I'm going to stitch down underneath my egg. And there we go. Look how cute they are. Look how cute that is. Okay, so now I'm just going to get this wrapped around a few times and cut my wires. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I did something. There we go. Okay, so this one too. This one's just extra. I'm just going to clip that. I'm going to wrap that in, wrap this in, get rid of it, hide it in the eggs, and there we go. There we have our little bird's nest. Isn't it cute? Happy spring.